So now what I want to tell you is, right, about the concept of interfaces. Okay, and you know, interfaces, what they do, what they mean, why they are used. All right. Yesterday I had told you that we have got different browsers. We have got different drivers for different browsers. Safari driver is there. Okay, and then you can say Chrome driver is there, Firefox driver is there. Okay, so there are different drivers. Okay, right, but will I have to learn every driver separately? Okay, so this is a generic question or a generic thought by everyone. Okay, will I have to learn all these drivers separately? Okay, the answer to that is no. Every driver has got certain set of features inside it, certain set of functions inside it. Right. Now, will I have to learn the functions of Firefox driver separately, Chrome driver and iDriver? Or what if I want to write a script which could run on different drivers or different browsers? Okay. So, for that you will have to understand the concept of interfaces in Java language. Okay. Now, what do you mean by an interface? Okay. Um, so for by an interface, I mean, I'll create a new project over here. Day 2. Fine. Over here, in the day 2 project, okay, what I'll do is that I'll right click on the project. I'll go to the properties, right. I'll go to Java build path, click on add external jars and add the jars of Selenium first of all. Okay, I will talk about the batch ID and all everything by the end of the class. I'll tell you, right. So over here I'll create a new interface. Okay, now what do you mean by an interface? Right, how interface works. Right, look, you create a new interface and you call this interface such as say car. Now by saying that interface, okay, I mean an interface will tell what the system is supposed to do. Okay, so just a minute Pratik, just a minute. For example, if you go to a restaurant, okay, you have a menu over there. You look at the menu and the a la carte menu and then you decide which food item you have to buy, right. You don't know how it will taste, you have doubts, right. You don't know how it is prepared, but the menu gives you a brief background that what is offered by the restaurant to you. So similarly, interface in Java is also the same thing. It gives you a brief background about the system. For example, public interface car. Inside it we can have functions like public void start, then stop. The methods will not have the bodies. These will just be functions with no function bodies. Alright, fine. Now an interface is always implemented. Okay, you always go and implement the interface. For example, I make a new class known as, say, Honda. Honda is a car, and what we will write over here, we will write Honda class implements the car interface. When I say that it implements, then it becomes mandatory for the Honda class to implement all the functions, these two functions which I have declared in the car interface. The Honda class will have to go and implement both the functions. Okay, you move your mouse over Honda and click on add unimplemented methods, and you will implement both the functions. Right. Okay, start and stop will be the two functions inside the Honda class. Okay, right. And you can print in them Honda starting and Honda stopping. At the rate override sign means that this is technically known as an annotation. It means that this function is coming up from the car interface. Okay, that this function is coming up from the car interface. It was the part of the interface and you have implemented it. So what we have done is that, right, yes, you have to add external jars in every project. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to create an interface, and there will be a class which has to implement the interface. What all functions which will define an interface, you'll have to give the bodies to all those functions. You cannot say that you will only give one function. You have to give all of them. If you give one, you'll get an error. You have to implement all the functions. But what is the use of this? I'll come over to it. Okay, just be with me. Now, for example, I create another class over here, and I write over here, say, Ford. So Ford implements the car interface. Okay, and you'll have to add the unimplemented methods. Fine. Okay, so you'll have the @override function over here as well, and you can type into it Ford car starting and Ford car stopping. Right. Okay, so fine. So over here, this is @override sign. Okay, and for the two functions, start and stop. Alright, now over here, if you look at the whole scene, what I have done, I have made the car interface, and I have got two classes implementing the interface. Both the classes, they have the same functions, but the implementation is varying. The function names are same, start and stop. If anybody is having any doubt, let me know. Okay, so what did I achieve out of this? Nothing. Like if you think like a layman, then you could have simply built these two classes. There was no use of an interface. I could have eliminated the interface from here. You could have simply built two classes. But with the help of interface, the advantage is that if you have an interface and if you have certain classes which implement the interface, then all the classes will have the same functions. The implementations might vary. Okay, right. Hold on, Sasmita, hold on. I'm just giving you an overview right now. Okay, right. So the implementation of the functions will vary in every class, but the function names will remain the same. So the advantage is it gives the whole system a certain structure. Tomorrow if a new car comes up in the market, it has to implement the car interface, which will have the very basic functions which are there in every car, and those will be implemented in this car class. Apart from that, these individual classes can implement their own functions as well, but the functions of the interfaces, it will be mandatory for them to implement. Okay, right. So I hope you are getting my point. Fine. Now in Selenium, if you talk about Selenium, if you go to the official website of Selenium, okay, and if you go to the download link, you will see Java doc link over here, and you click on the Java doc, right? And in the Java doc, if you scroll down, whatever is there in italics is an interface. For example, this thing I always give to people, mouse. Mouse is an interface which represents basic mouse operations. Okay, like click, context click, double click. Okay, and right. So we have got various mouse operations, and these are the two classes implementing the mouse interface. You can go to these classes and check them out as well. Similarly, everybody has heard about the word WebDriver. What is WebDriver? Technically, WebDriver is an interface. Okay. I hope you are understanding my point. Technically, WebDriver is an interface, and all these classes, they are implementing the WebDriver interface. All the driver classes like Chrome driver, Edge driver, Firefox, IE, Opera remote, all these things. Right. So I hope you are able to understand. Fine. Out here, if you look at the functions of this, there are functions in this interface which will be there in every driver. Okay, right. And functions like get, which will load a new web page. So get function will be there in every driver. Yesterday we saw that when we were actually using the get function in every driver to go to a certain website. So all the drivers classes will have the same set of functions. Okay. Right. Hold on, Pratik, you'll get it cleared. Just be with me. You'll get it cleared. Okay. Right. Over here, look, you don't have to make your own interfaces and all in Selenium. Everything is inbuilt. But you need to know how it is working. There is an inbuilt WebDriver interface and inbuilt classes which implement the interface. So all these classes will have these set of functions. Get the title of the page. Find an element on the page. It will go and find a link button, any element on the page. Okay, quit. That means close the browser. Right. So all these driver classes will have the same set of functions. That is clear. So you don't have to study every driver class individually. They will have same set of functions. Right. Okay. Now comes the second problem. If I make a new class known as launch browser, okay, and over here if I create the object of if I create the object of say I have a variable like string browser equals to say Mozilla. Now based on the value of this variable, I have to open the browser and do the testing. Okay, right, I have to open the browser and do the testing based on this thing. So my code should be dynamic enough at the bottom after line number 7, dynamic to the extent that if the browser name is changed over here, the same code should work on that browser. Okay, right. So for doing that, how will you work? You can keep some people say that you can keep an if statement, that if the browser is say equal to Mozilla, then we will create the object of Firefox driver. Else, if the browser is Chrome, you will create the object of Chrome driver. Okay, similarly else if if it is I, in that case I, then you will create the object of Internet Explorer driver, right? Okay, only thing is, just a minute, I have repeated it 2 times. Only thing is, in your Selenium basics, you have to set the exe paths. I'll write it in the very first go in the program itself. For Chrome and I, you have to put the exes, right? Okay, so but will this work? Does it look feasible to you? If I am creating the object of Firefox driver, then I'll have to write the complete code, that Firefox dot go to the website http gmail.com for example, and then do all the testing. Similarly, Chrome driver dot go to gmail.com. Similarly, iDriver dot go to gmail.com. Does it make sense? It never makes sense. Are you understanding my point? Although the function names are same in every driver class, but how will you run it dynamically? If I change the browser to Chrome, it will run, but for every browser Will I write the code separately? Is there anybody who's not able to answer or is not able to understand? Okay, so over here again interfaces they come into the play. Okay, how? Let me tell you. Now I had created the interface car which had two minimum functions which will be there in every car class, and I had two classes, Ford and Honda class implement. Okay, right. So over here the question being asked is what is wrong in it. The wrong is that for every browser I'll have to write the code. I'll have to write the code to say enter username over here, for example, then again enter username over here, then enter. Will I have to write a separate code for every browser? No, this is not good. Okay, so what we do is that we use the help, we take the help of interfaces over here as well. Okay, so we had the interface car which had, as I told you, which had two bare minimum functions which will be there in every class implementing it. Now Honda class is implementing these two functions, but apart from this, right, say Honda class says that it wants its own functions, say GPS. So GPS is the function which is specifically offered by Honda car. Okay, so how will you like not how will you hold on, let me make a new class, explain you, hold on. I'll create a new class known as, say, test. Okay, right. So Deepak, just watched yesterday's video. You'll come to know you have to set the driver exe paths. Okay, right. So over here, if I create the object of, say, Ford class, Ford f equals to new Ford, and if you write over here Ford dot, you will have the functions like start, Ford dot stop. Then if you run it, it will simply write Ford car stopping, Ford car stop. Okay, right. Now similarly you can create the object of Honda class, Honda H equals to new Honda, and you can write h dot start, h dot stop, and you can also call the function GPS, which is a proprietary function for Honda class. This is very simple. Okay, straightforward. If I run it, it will call the respective functions. Okay, right. Now here is the twist. The solution to our problem, that is, will I have to write separate code for every browser, comes up from here. Okay, you will write over here, hold on, just a minute, my mouse, yeah, you will write over here car C equals to new Honda. Now what is this? Little different, right? C is the reference. Okay, C is the reference of the interface. Okay, C is the reference of the interface pointing towards the object of the Honda class which is implementing the interface. So the reference of an interface is pointing towards the object which is implementing the interface. Over here the scenario was different on line number 9. The reference was of the class and the object was of the same class. Over here the reference is of the interface which is being implemented by the class. Okay, so with C you can call start. I'll put a demarcation line. So there's a difference over here. The reference is of the interface and the object is of the class implementing the interface. Okay, C dot stop I can call. But if I run it, hold on. It prints Honda starting, Honda stopping. Fine. But I cannot call the GPS function in this case. I can only call the functions in the Honda class which are coming from the interface. So the difference between this line and this line is that in line number 15 I can only access the functions which are coming from the interface, right, into the class. In line number 9, right, we can call all the functions. But what is the use of this then? What is the use of line number 15 if we cannot call everything? If we can only call the implementing functions, not the proprietary functions. Okay, I'll explain you the use. Suppose I write over here car C1 equals to null. That means C1 is the reference of the car class which is not pointing anywhere. No object, nothing. C1 is present but null means that it is not pointing anywhere. Based on our choice, I can write C1 equals to new Honda. So C1 points towards the implementing class Honda. If I write C1 dot start over here, okay, and run it, it will print Honda starting, right? But on the next line I may decide that C1 should point towards new Ford. So if I write C1 dot start now the start function of the Ford class will be called. The function names will be same in these classes because they implement the same interface. So when you run it, it will print Honda starting and Ford car starting. Okay, the reference of the interface, I am making it point towards any class of my choice which is implementing the interface. Okay, now if we discuss about Selenium, now how will this be helpful in Selenium? Right. Are you guys able to understand this concept? Anyone? Let me know. Because this concept is going to solve our problem over there. I told you that we have got drivers. Okay, in Selenium we have got drivers. Firefox driver is there, Chrome driver is there, I driver is there. Okay, there are different driver classes. Okay, so we have got Firefox driver is there, I driver is there, Chrome driver is there. Now we used to create the object like this, say Firefox driver equals to say fd equals to new. We used to write like this, right? You cannot access that function, AK. You cannot access that. Similarly, Chrome driver you can create the object, right? You can import Chrome driver. Similarly, Internet Explorer driver you can create the object. Okay, right? So what happens is that every driver object is individually created, but I had told you that every driver is implementing this WebDriver interface. So instead of creating the object like this, you can also write say WebDriver driver fd equals to new Firefox driver, or WebDriver cd equals to new Chrome driver, or WebDriver I equals to new I driver. Or what I can do is that I can simply write WebDriver say driver equals to null in the beginning. Based on our choice, okay, what we want, we will make driver point towards new Firefox driver class, or we will make driver point towards new Chrome driver class, or we will make driver point towards new I driver class. It is completely your choice, like we did over here. And that gives us a solution over here for this issue. So we are not going to write the code like this over here. We are not going to write the code like this. What we'll do is that before the if statement, I'll declare my WebDriver driver equals to null. Based on my decision, I will make driver point towards either Firefox or Chrome or I. And hereafter you can use the regular commands, because the functions in all the driver classes, they are same, and very less proprietor functions are there. There is no special proprietor functions in these driver classes. So you can simply write say driver.get http gmail.com, and after reaching gmail.com you can print say driver.get title. You can get the title of the page. So when you run this code now, it will run on Chrome. The Chrome driver exe I have set in the path as I told you yesterday, and when you run this, so this code will open Chrome and it will take you to Gmail, right? And now if I change the browser to Mozilla, so if you run it, the same Chrome, instead of Chrome, it will work on Mozilla. So these are the regular commands. The functions will be same in all the driver classes. Now you see that Gmail has opened in Mozilla. Now if you change it to I, then it will work on I as well. So this will be used in the frameworks. When we build the framework in the end, this is how we will dynamically open the browser. and you see that Gmail is loading. Okay, right. Now, anybody with any questions in this? The commands, the functions, get title, get, all the functions will be same in all the drivers. Sorry. Anybody with any questions? Yes. Yes. The name of the functions, yeah, they are same, yes. And where these classes, they hardly have their own set of functions. Everything is coming from the WebDriver interface. Okay, so the interface defines the system. And in Selenium, WebDriver is an interface. It is the starting point. Alright. So anybody with any other question? Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, later on we'll read this from an Excel file or a properties file. So that I'll tell you later on, but just this is just an example. Okay. No, no, you are not. You're going in the wrong direction. Okay. Just be with me for next coming classes. You will come to know. Okay. You will come to know. Yeah. Okay. So over here, you have launched the browser like this. Right. Now, if you um, I know it's getting very late for people in India. They were telling me that it will be very late. Hold on, just give me some time. Okay, just a minute. Actually, I had a wedding to attend today. So I've covered this interface. What is the need of interface? What is the concept and use in Selenium? Now, how do you identify the objects in Selenium? Right. How do you identify the objects? Look, what do you mean by objects? Look, first of all, yes, application of, look, in Selenium, you don't, it's not a rocket science where you will be making your own interfaces and all that stuff and you need to be an architect or something. No, everything is inbuilt. You need to know the concepts. You need to know that WebDriver is an interface and all these are the implementing classes for this interface. Okay. Now, after you go to gmail.com, you have to identify the elements on the page and work with them. So how do you do that? Fine. It means, yes, it means interface is something which tells what the system is supposed to do. And the implementing classes will implement those things. Just by looking at the interface, yes, in short, this is also the architecture of WebDriver. Everything starts from the WebDriver interface. Okay, technically, if someone asks you what is Selenium WebDriver, WebDriver is basically an interface. Alright. Now, over here, um, we had, just a minute, we have to identify the objects. We have to identify the elements on the web page. Okay. Technically, everything in Selenium or in the browser in case of Selenium is known as a web element. Don't confuse this with web element of QTP if you know QTP. Okay, right. Yeah, Praveen. It's a class with a set of functions which are undefined. Okay, undeclared. So over here, just a minute. If you go to, suppose you are on the website bbc.com. So this is the home page of BBC. Let it open. Alright. Now over here you have links, buttons, text fields, images, various web components, and each and every web component on in case of Selenium is technically known as a web element. A button is a web element. Okay. A link is a web element. Right. Everything falls under the category of web element. Alright. Fine. So if you look at the documentation of Selenium, which is seleniumhq.org, hold on. Right. If you look at the Java docs, then web element. This is an interface. Again, in case of Selenium, this interface represents a basic HTML element. Okay. It represents a generic element on the web page, and it's got functions which could be fired on those generic elements. For example, click on the element, clear the value of the element, or get the location of the element, get the size, get the text, whether the element is displayed, is enabled, is selected. So there are various functions under the web element interface. Don't confuse this with web element of QTP. If you know QTP, that is different. Okay. So on a web page, a button, link, everything is known as a web element. And how do you identify the web elements? Right. How will you work with the web elements? Okay. For that you need to understand that Selenium first of all is a tool which is only for web-based applications. It works on the page source of the page. This is the page source. This page source is HTML language. Okay. If you go to any website, you will have the HTML page source on any website. Okay. And in HTML you have got tags and attributes. For example, many of you might be knowing about it. Right. This is the h1 tag. Starts over here. The value of h1 tag is BBC homepage and ends over here. Okay, this is ID is the attribute of this tag, one of the attributes. This is a div tag. It's got an attribute class. It starts over here and ends over here. Slash div means it is ending. And in between it's got various other things as well. Okay, so in HTML you have got tags. This is the tag, and a tag has got 0 to many attributes. Sometimes there is a tag which has got no attribute. Sometimes there is a tag which has got one or more than one attributes. right? Okay, for example, if you look at this li tag, it has got one attribute. Okay, but if you look at this anchor tag represents a link. It has got a class attribute and a href attribute. So with the help of these tags and attributes, you identify the elements on the web page. Okay, so over here I have written the code which could dynamically open the browser. But how do you identify the elements? For that you have to analyze the page source. Now you don't have to analyze the page source like this, the way I did. You can install a tool in Firefox that is known as Firebug. Go to Google and just type on Google Firebug Firefox, and you will have the first link over here. Okay, go to this link and install Firebug. Right, after that, fine, you can also open, say, if you or your Firefox might restart and all, and after that you will get an icon over here, this icon. When you click on this icon, a window like this will come up with the HTML tab and a small arrow sign. Right, when you click on this arrow and you move your mouse over the various elements on the web page, you'll get the page source. Let me open another site, say hold on, in.rediff.com, and the moment I click on this arrow and move the mouse over the elements, you'll see that the elements will be highlighted and you will get the HTML page source of those elements as well. Okay, right, in Chrome also you can inspect the web page. Open Chrome and say suppose I go to any website and hold on, let the web page load, and I want to investigate, say, this button get quotes on this page. So in Chrome there is something known as Chrome Inspector. It is already inbuilt. You can hit F12 of the keyboard. It will come up. You see that it has come up, and then there is a small arrow over here as well at the left side. Click on the arrow and move the mouse over the element and that element will get highlighted. This Chrome Inspector is already there in Chrome. Or you can right click on the element and select inspect option as well. So it will get highlighted in inspector. Okay, in I, if you talk about I, if you open I and go to any web page, if you hit F12 in I, you have got the I developer tool which comes up. Okay, which has got a similar arrow at the top left side. You click on the arrow, move the mouse, move the arrow over various elements, and you will get the source code of the elements highlighted. Okay, right, now it is not necessary to inspect elements in different browsers. Okay, the page source, this is the page source, it remains same across all the browsers. The elements, they remain same across all the browsers. You can inspect the element on one browser and you can use it across different browsers. You don't have to inspect for a separate browser separately. No, obviously the response of the server will be the same for every request. It doesn't matter which browser you want to open up, even Safari or Opera or anything. But if you want to investigate in different browsers, this is the case. Generally we use Firefox, investigate the elements in Firefox, because usage of Firebug is easy. Okay, and we implement the code in the other browsers, right? Okay, so this is about how will you use, how will you analyze the page source, installing the Firebug and analyzing on Chrome and IE. Now tag and attribute matrix. Every page source, you see that every element on the page source, for example, this is an input field. The tag name is input and there are various attributes associated with this tag. So with the help of this tag name and the attribute, all this matrix, right, you identify the elements, and there are various identifying techniques available in Selenium. Number of identifying techniques. These are also known as locator strategies. Locators, these are also locators. It's a very common term in Selenium. It means that the criteria with which you identify the elements on the page. Generally, in any automation tool, not the Selenium, if an element has got an ID, it becomes really easy to identify it, because ID is supposed to be unique in case of web applications, right? Yeah, Deepak. They can be dynamic as well, but the name of the attribute will remain static. If it is there, the value can be dynamic. Sometimes the value is dynamic, the name will not change like that. Okay, right, I'll tell you as we proceed, you will come to know. Okay, there are a lot of questions which will come into your minds, but as we proceed with the course and once we are on the day 7, day 8, things will be very clear. Okay, right, now how do you identify the elements with IDs and names and all everything? Now let me